as Ambrose Shomidi. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
All right, we will now link up with Eshomo Moimudu and Tijesu Aderi in our Abuja studio. Good morning, Eshomo, Tijesu. How are you guys doing this morning?
Yeah, we're doing well. Abuja looks great this morning.
Right, and beautiful. It's another Monday morning.
Exactly. Now, it's a bright morning here in the capital city of Abuja, and we will be taking a closer look at the crucial roles legislative committees play in budget defense process in Nigeria. Now, the Nigerian legislative process involves extensive scrutiny of the annual budget proposal presented by the executive arm of government. Now, this task largely falls on the shoulders of specialized legislative committees, which serve as the bedrock of accountability and transparency in public financial management. And the legislative committees are instrumental in ensuring that the proposed budget aligns with the nation's development priorities and economic realities. They review, question, and often amend proposals to reflect the needs of the people.
And during these different sessions, government agencies are invited to defend their allocation, providing clarity on expenditure plans and expected outcomes. This process ensures that public funds are not only allocated wisely, but also spent efficiently. But while these committees play a vital role, challenges such as inadequate data, political interference, and time constraints can hinder their effectiveness. Now joining us live in the studio to add perspective to the roles of legislative committees in Nigeria's budgeting process is the chairman of House Committee on Rules and Business, Honorable Francis Waive. It's good to have you on the program this morning.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Now let's jump straight into it. The budget defense sessions have commenced in the National Assembly, and one of the major issues that have been raised is the insufficient funds that have been allocated in the budget. Notably, the Independent National Electoral Commission and the Ministry of Solid Minerals are seeking more funding. This pattern has sparked quite a number of curiosity among Nigerians, and they're asking the question, did the executive arm of government, properly assess the task at hand before making these allocations? Do lawmakers also share this concern?
Well, every year when we go through this routine of MDAs coming to defend their budget, you will hear from each and every one of them that they need more funds, even the one that have the highest allocation, even the security structure that has the highest in this present budget, 4.91 trillion. There's still, I was in the committee the other day on Saturday, because of time, we meet even on Saturdays to screen. To review the envelope of different MDAs. I was in one on Saturday, military agency, and they were still asking for more funds, so it's a normal thing. I think the scarcity of resources is a normal economic phenomenon, and especially with the hardship being experienced around the world and in our country. So it should not be out of place when any ministry, any MDA says they need more funding. For INEC particularly, one would think that I'm not in the executive anyway, but in my mind, the executive will be thinking about the election year being the year when they will pump in more money into INEC. They would want to look at the off-cycle elections that will possibly take place in 2025, and all that would justify whatever envelope they are given. Of course, their personnel, overhead, those are given. So the other duties they have to perform during the year is what I think the executive looks at. And for us as legislature, when we are reviewing these, we also have that in mind. We look at each of these items of expenditure, particularly, these budgets is segmented into different ministries, departments, and agencies. So, say the Committee on Power, for instance, will not be looking at the budget of but just that of power. And while looking at that of power, they would want to look into the nitty-gritty, what is provided for what, and try to justify. For instance, if X amount is provided for personnel, You want to look at what's the payroll, what does it look like? You want to look at what was the figure last year and previous year, and what was the performance last year that you are now doing. So if there's a jump in the allocation for personnel, for example, you want to find out, are you employing new staff? If there's a reduction, what's happening? Are you expecting some to die or some to be retired? Those are the kind of things we look at for when we look at these figures, and many times it's very detailed. Okay,
let's look at this aspect. Like she highlighted the one for solid mineral INEC. Also of worry is the allocation to health. We also know that health and education play a critical role in this particular government, talking about human capital development. When you are processing, screening this budget, are there room for you to kind of reallocate, probably increase some areas you felt that, look, we serve better the public interests? Do you consider that, and what role also does lobbying play in passing the budget?
I must begin by saying that education has the second highest allocation, 3.5 trillion. So I'll be surprised if they are still asking for. By the way, Oliver always asks for more, and health had 2.8. These are some of the highest that had some of the highest allocations. And what we really look at is not, we don't really move figures from one ministry or MDA to the other. But within that MDA, we try to find justification for the allocation to that particular expenditure head. For instance, if you have, like one we looked at last week, there was an amount for overhead, then there's another amount for running costs. We had to ask the MDA to define and differentiate what this means. And then we had to look at what makes up each of them. So such that we're at a position where we could say that some items in the running cost should move over to overhead, because they were not running costs in the way they defined it. Because what they defined as running cost was different from the ordinary meaning of the word. In fact, some of the things we consider to be capital expenditure were in their running cost. So we moved that from running cost to capital. That's the kind of thing we do. Now, there is also the possibility of a little bit of subtraction and addition here and there, particularly when we notice that there is a justified huge allocation. And when we find it, I remember in the last assembly, in the 9th assembly, we invited a minister because the MDA under him could not define how they got one particular humongous figure. The head of the agency couldn't really talk about it. What he was telling us was that the envelope he was given didn't include that. So what he broke down and submitted to the budget office didn't include that. So we had to invite the minister to explain how that got there, and then to break it down, because it was a bulk figure. Tell us what this comprises. Otherwise, we are going to strike it out. And then the budget figure for that MDA will drop by that figure. Those are the kind of scrutiny that we do. And there are times when we take from that kind of ministry, we could add somewhere else. When you do all of this, and then when you now look at some other issues, for instance, currently Mr. President proposed $75 for a barrel of oil as the benchmark for 2025. We could look at the trend over the years and look at what is happening right now. And then we feel that from all economic realities, $75 may not be realistic, and we bring it to 70. That will immediately reduce the budget size, But if we increase it to 80, it increases the budget size. And then when you increase it to 80, it means you have to allocate that difference. So by the time we begin to allocate the difference, you begin to hear people use all kinds of words and languages. But the truth is, we are doing our job. That's what we're elected to do. The Appropriation Act is the primary legislation for any legislator all over the world. In fact, the Constitution defines it and says that it is illegal to spend government money without appropriation by the National Assembly, and at the state level without appropriation by the State Assembly. So that is how crucial appropriation is. So if it is a question of Mr. President throws it at you and you give it back to him the way it came, then we don't have any need for a legislative scrutiny.
Well, Honorable, the budget allocated to defense and security every year has come up for question. Look at this year now. Security and defense had 4.9 trillion naira in the budget. And people are saying the budget of security keeps increasing, though they say it's necessary to ensure the protection of lives and property. But on looking at it from the other side, people still face security challenges. The country is saddled with this security challenge, threats to national security and all of that. It still keeps increasing. Where is this money going?
Well, first, I must say that we must never complain about any expenditure on security. Because without security, nothing else can happen. Nothing else. No peace, no development, no progress, no education. You can't even take care of health. Look at the war-torn parts of the world today. Hospitals are even being attacked by military equipment. These monies are going into military infrastructure. And you know that we import virtually everything. And you import, you pay in FX. And you know the exchange rate. So the increase in these figures is justifiable with the exchange rate and then with the amount of pressure that the security agencies are facing. But we must also note, although people don't want to look at it very keenly, but if you look at it, in the last 1 year plus, there is an improvement in the security situation of our country. It's gradually getting better. I'm an optimist, so I always look at the good side of life. But many people would want to say, as long as somebody was kidnapped yesterday, we are still facing security challenges. That's true. But let's look at it and percentage. Let's do a ratio analysis. Things are getting better. Security-wise. And our armed forces have recorded such progress, such successes, that we need to celebrate them. Yesterday I was in church for the Armed Forces Remembrance Day, and I was there very happily and very proudly because our armed forces are doing very well. And with this progress we are making, I don't think Nigerians should complain about the money we are spending. At least we are seeing results coming from the expenditure. You put your money where your mouth is. I think we are doing well in our expenditure for the security forces.
Okay, earlier I asked about what role does lobbying play in passing the budget, in the sense that you talked about security, that is military and police. In December, the president signed a bill where the National Assembly increased the allocation to retirees. Now, you're also considering, probably during this screening, to beef up the welfare of the police, because they're part of security also. When you look at policemen out there, you tend to question the kind of welfare packages they have.
Yeah, lobbying is a legitimate part of legislative practice all over the world. And our democracy, which is fashioned according to the US pattern, you find that in America there are established lobby groups. And here there are people who also lobby. In fact, if you want something, you got to lobby. Even as an honorable member of the House or a senator, distinguished senator, you must lobby for your motions and your bills to pass. So the same thing happens when you come to appropriation. When a figure has been given to your MDA, you have a duty to justify it. You have a duty to talk to the chairman of that committee, the members of that committee, to let them understand why that figure must not go down. And in fact, convince them on why it should go up. It's called lobbying. Lobbying does not really entail exchange of money, if that is what you mean by the question. It means logical reasoning. It means conviction. It means being able to win others to your line of reasoning. And so in the appropriation, lobbying is definitely being done and permitted. You talked about the police. In the Ninth Assembly, I sponsored a bill for police retirees to be exempted from the contributory pension scheme because of the small figure that comes to them. And of course, many other agencies began to push for the same. The plight of the police officers is well known, but you will notice that there is an improvement also, though we're not where we ought to be. There has been an improvement in their take-home. What we are pushing for right now is for it to get better, and for the retirees from the police to get a better take-home at the end of every month. They definitely deserve to get better, particularly they're the frontline response in the security challenges we are facing today as a country. If you have a police force that is well-funded, that is well-remunerated, you'll have a better performing police force, I believe.
One major concern also raised is the implementation of this budget. Some have assigned this problem to, maybe these funds are not being released on time, or the funds are not even available at all, which has led to a cumulative problem of recycling of projects. When this budget is passed, what will the oversight function of the lawmakers look like in terms of ensuring that these funds are released timely?
Yeah, that's a very crucial question that should first of all go to the executive, because the executive has the business of releasing the funds. Our job after we pass the budget is to conduct oversight, ensure that the budget is implemented according to law, because it's a law, Appropriation Act. We go from MDA to MDA with the relevant committees now to ensure that the budget is implemented as passed. The challenge always, particularly in the last couple of years, has been on the capital expenditures. Personnel and overhead is given, and they just, in fact, with the defense that I've been attending in the last couple of weeks, many of them have had 100% performance in personnel expenditure releases. And the same thing in overhead, some 80, 70%. But when you come to capital, some are as low as 25. And that's very challenging. It has made us to extend the life of budgets just to ensure that the good intention of government in projecting and planning to implement some capital projects don't get wasted at the end of the year. And so that we don't go into what happened previously. Take the FCT, for example. The last minister will return money every year in billions of naira. You want to hail that as a transparent gesture. But if you compare that with what is happening now, with the monies being used, and you are seeing the roads and the bridges, you are seeing the improvement in movement in the FCT, you want to prefer this to returning the money, to the coffers. And by the time you return the money, you start facing issues of depreciation and all of that. You can think of what that money could have done when the naira exchanged better 4 years ago. So we can't, as legislature, do anything in the matter of releases. We can only appeal, and when we notice the situation, we can make noise about it, call the attention of Mr. President and the executive to it. We can also drag our feet in extending the life of the budget. So we are hoping as Parliament that we have extended 2024 to June 2025. We expect that the 2025 budget will begin to be implemented from the day Mr. President signs it, so that 2024 and 2025 should run pari passu, not only in terms of personnel and overhead, but particularly for capital, so that by the time you get to November, December, in fact by June, 2024 is done with. And then by November, we should be talking about 80–90% of capital being implemented. But I can assure you that this 10th Assembly would play our role of oversight and put gentle pressure on the executive to ensure that capital projects are implemented and implemented on time.
Okay, I like the aspect of the gentle pressure. Now part of the gentle pressure could it also mean that while looking at this 2025 budget, you're going to look at, because there's so much hunger out there and things are not the way it used to be. What are those areas that you and your colleague will be taking deeper look at to help grow the system? Because really you can't really spend money that is not there. So until we grow the system, until we grow the economy, then we can have enough money to spend. What are those specific areas you will expect that, look, you will take a deeper look at and probably appropriate more?
Yeah, In this respect, we don't only look at the expenditure part of the budget. Yeah. We look at the revenue part of it also. And we're looking at what we can do to help increase our income, revenue from oil, to ensure that the things that bring up, the loss in production, such that we don't meet our upper quota. Such things are eliminated from the process. And then ensuring too, we're also looking at security to ensure that when there's security, people can go to their farms, people can go to do their businesses. And when the economy is now moving, turning around, then you find that life will become easier for the average Nigerian. Those are the areas we are looking at, trying to ensure that the revenue aspect is protected, and also that the security aspect, they have all they need. And then we're looking at the basic issues of social infrastructure. This government is doing a lot in terms of humanitarian assistance to the poor of the poor, the least of the common man out there, to ensure that they have something to eat at the end of the day. So we're looking at budgets that have to do with humanitarian services, social infrastructure, to ensure that our people get a better living standard in 2025. Those are the things we are giving priority to.
With these projections made in the budget, particularly the crude oil benchmark price and, revenue generation, would you say this budget is overly ambitious, considering, the crude oil theft, even the refineries that are up and running, the impact is yet to be felt by the common man on the street, and, some other matters? Would you say that this budget is over ambitious?
No, not at all. This budget is very pragmatic, very strategic, and very practical, very implementable. It's a budget that can turn things around for our country. When you talk about being ambitious, 2.06 million barrels per day, we've surpassed that in the past. And then you'll notice that since President Bola Ahmed Tinubu came into office, there has been a steady increase in the production output for our country. And it's because Mr. President has not only applied the stick, he has also applied the carrot. So you find that the Niger Delta, the people there are taking care of the infrastructure already for the country. And the production quota is already increasing. And government is doing a lot. The other day, oil blocks were released, a number of actions being taken to ensure that production goes up. And government has been also very, very practical in terms of the exchange rate. That will help the budget. 1,500 naira to $1. Remember where we're coming from, 850 into 2024. So I think that government was very realistic. Government could have said 1,000 naira to $1. Currently it's about 1,650, but government put it at 1,500. I was shocked when I saw that. I thought that government was being very real. And this reality will make the budget very implementable. And as that happens, you'll find that the target of reducing inflation to 15% will just work out like magic. When Mr. President announced it, some people thought it was an ambitious plan to reduce inflation from 34.6 thereabout to 15%. But with what we are seeing today, we know it's doable. And I am very excited that government is looking in that direction to bring inflation down. And when you bring that down, it means that life will be easier for our people. And that's the duty of government, the welfare of the people. So I don't see this budget as being over-ambitious. My policy, the way I look at life, is that you try to reach for the skies, jump, and do your best. And if you don't touch the skies, of course, you cross the ceiling. But if you sit back and say, oh, things are difficult, we're not going to make an effort, then you'll never make progress in life.
Well, some Nigerians are forced to believe that although the government says that its reforms, you know, and the economic reforms is making, it's already yielding results, but Nigerians are still feeling the harsh impacts of these reforms. Take a look at transportation. It's still on the high side. Take a look at electricity, you know, food availability, you know, and also the income that the common Nigerians get is not commensurate to what they can purchase. Would you say that it's still a long walk to progress?
It's a long walk, but not very long. Rome was not built in a day. The impact is already being felt, but it's happening gradually. Remember that all this destruction, all these things happening to our country did not happen overnight. Take the subsidy, for instance. It has been there for decades, and it has destroyed the fabric of our economic system. So that those who were running the subsidy, the subsidy cartel, ensured that our refineries never worked. But here comes the president who said subsidy is gone. And you thought it was a joke. But before you know it, the cartel realized that this man is serious. And since they're not going to get getting the subsidy, let the refineries go. And suddenly, our refineries are working. Dangote is working. And the price of refined product is coming down gradually. Importation is going completely. If you are basic economics, in primary, secondary class 2 or 3 in our time, you would have learned that once that happens, the price will go down. But it will not go down overnight. So our people need to be patient. Things are already changing. You talk about food security and scarcity. I was very scared before Christmas that I won't even have rice to buy and give to my constituents. But what happened shocked all of us. We had enough to buy and distribute. The price was still high, but it's gradually going down. In fact, the factory from which I ordered mine has told me the price has even gone down a little more, whether I want to still buy more. You know, so it's going down. Things are getting better, but very gradually. Well, so it's a matter of patience. We're going to get there.
Honorable, before I let you go, I would like to ask you, although I would deviate a bit from our topic, the issue of Okwama community, a community in your constituency. We understand, you saw what happened with the soldiers who were brutally murdered in the community, and life has not been the same since then. What is the current situation now as it stands? I heard that some of the people that were taken into custody actually died in custody. What level is the investigation process like? Has it ended? Just give us a quick update on that.
Whenever the Ukwama incident is mentioned, it makes me very sad. The fact that the bodies of these slain soldiers were found in a community, in that community in my constituency, is a very sad one. But the point here is that because the bodies were found there, does not make my people culpable, does not make them to be responsible for it. You could kill people anywhere and bring their corpse somewhere. That community and all of that environment is an area I'm very, very familiar with. Before coming into politics, I worked as a pastor, a missionary pastor. And that area, I spent years going around there with free medical care. That village does not have more than a few hundred people. All they do is farm and fish. I don't know how to manage to kill officers.
So are you saying there's an external influence?
That's what I believe, and that's what everybody in my place believes. So that when the king was taken away, we felt humiliated. We felt oppressed. That can't happen in some parts of the country. But our desire and our prayer is that those who carried out that heinous act must be found and must be brought to book.
Where is the stage of the investigation?
Our people must be exonerated. You know, I can't tell about the stage because it's a military investigation. What we called for was a judicial investigation. That didn't hold. I moved a motion on the floor and it passed, and the Committee on Defense was asked to carry out an investigation. We went there. The community gave us a memorandum, but the army didn't submit anything. And that gave us some challenges. The other day, a few more leaders of the community were picked up, and like you said, 1 or 2 died again in custody, which is very sad. One elderly man has just been released, but that's not enough for us. We want all of them to be released. If you can't find any fault against somebody, you take him to court if you still want to allege. It's the police that should be prosecuting them. But for the army to keep them for this long is very sad. It's against their fundamental human rights. It's against the constitution of our country. And we continue to speak against that while we condemn the brutal killing of those. Those could be anybody's parents, anybody's brother or sister. So we condemn the killing, but you don't. No, it gets emotional for me when I think about Okwama.
Okay.
And remember that the community is still in ruins as we speak. Yeah. All buildings leveled. You have only one church hall and one block of classroom left. So in that time, the people were in the bushes. Those women and children were able to run, you know, so that those who couldn't run lost their lives. It's a very sad situation where we want a situation where the state government, you know, made up an IDP camp and brought the women and children. And the time has come to rebuild Okwama, to build the houses again, and let the people come back and live their lives. It's a very touchy one for me and for our people.
Well, we apologize for that, Honorable. I touched a very touchy side of you this morning, but we hope that clarity actually comes to that situation soon. We must thank you so much for your time with us on the program this morning.
Thank you.
And that's it from Abuja. Let's take you back to our Lagos studios for the continuation of the program. Veronica and Ibrahim, what's next?
All right, next is a special feature that we'll be looking at something interesting, but I must say that that conversation that you had just now is a crucial one that I'm sure a lot of Nigerians must have learned a thing or two from. Thank you, TJ Su and Eshomomo. Now, how well do